This conference will now be recorded.
Well, good morning. I'm Matt Schwartz, chair of the Worksite Wellness Council of Louisville, and I want to welcome you to our virtual October conversation. And actually this morning, we are privileged to have a couple of our award winners. So we just had our 2020 conference, again, virtually a couple of weeks ago. So hopefully you had a chance to enjoy that. But of course, as we've done in the past, number of years, we've asked some of the award winners to share with us some of their best practices. And so again, this morning we're lucky to have three of our esteemed award winners. So of course, as you know, I'll give you a little intro here. So you know, these, in essence, these are the best practices that led them to win the awards. How did they integrate? How did they maintain transition during COVID-19? We've all been dealing with that. What they're going to all do is actually spend a couple minutes just sharing some maybe recap and insight into what their program has done and why they won the award, because they got that insight. And then there'll be some time for Q&A. So we'll, it doesn't sound like we have a whole lot of background noise. Everybody seems to be muted and blocking their screens. So, but the point is, I won't mute everybody because it doesn't sound like we have any background noise. But again, we are fortunate to have, and I'm going to let them do full introductions. But we have Daniel Dennert, who's with the Bluegrass Airport. So we thank him for joining us this morning. We then have Jeanie Dickerson, who is with Sumitomo. And then we have Kristin, I got to find you. Oh, there you go. Kristin Meschler, who's with AssuredPartners. And so those three folks are going to join in succession. And with that said, we're just going to jump right in. So Daniel, you should have the ability to unmute and you are ready to roll. So Daniel Dennert, who's with Bluegrass Airport. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Matt. I really appreciate it. I know Bluegrass Airport is very honored to have received this award and to be asked to come and talk about our wellness program a little bit and what we've done. So thank you to Worksite Wellness Council of Louisville and everybody for having us. I thought, since I had the task of warming people up to this conversation, and since this is a wellness thing, that it could be fun to do a couple stretches real quick, because it's only 8 o'clock in the morning and I know my brain is just warming up. So if people wanted to join me, you're welcome, or if you just want to watch while I warm myself up, that's also cool. But I'm going to go ahead and stretch over my head here. And if you want to join me, that's awesome. Kind of waking up your own body. And take a deep breath in and out. And let's go ahead and do the other arm and go the other way. In and out. And I thought we'd give it one good neck roll too this morning to kind of warm ourselves up. I know this 8 o'clock is an early start for all of us. All right, so again, I just want to say thank you to Worksite Wellness Council of Louisville, as well as all of our partners who have helped us get to this point. I guess for me, I've been asked to talk a little bit about what we've done inside of our organization and with our wellness program, specifically related to COVID, but also just in general for how we've worked with our employees to get them engaged in wellness. I know that's a big task for a lot of people, and I thought to give a framework to that conversation, the best thing I could do was to talk about how I came to wellness at first. And when my boss first approached me, she asked me to take over the wellness program and said, hey, this is something we're interested in doing, both for the financial element of making sure that our employees are well, and so when it comes to our insurance claim, there's that element, but also the cultural element of we really want to make sure that our employees are taking this into their personal lives and back home, because we believe it's going to make this a better, happier place to work. And my immediate thought was, I don't do wellness. What does that mean? I'm not a bodybuilder. I don't work out. That's not where I come from. And so as a small employer who this is just one of those additional tasks that I take care of, it was hard for me to kind of come to that. But I think what I've discovered is so often the question we're wrestling with, or that we come up to as people who are trying to get people engaged in wellness, is people who say, oh, I don't do wellness. But it was just a matter of time before I realized that I had a background in dance and in theater, and I could use that and the different things that I do as an ability to kind of be my entry point into the wellness program. So I thought about that, and pretty early on in my research of starting a wellness program, kind of what I figured out was that there was a slide, and I couldn't tell you where it was or what I learned it from, but 5 pillars of wellness. And it talked about wellness not just being physical, but also that mental element, a social element, there was a financial element. And so for this conversation, something I just wanted you to keep in mind is my goal with this wellness program was always from the beginning to find an entry point for employees, however they wanted to start getting engaged, because that was an easy segue into other elements in which they could become engaged. So that's kind of the framework, that access, where do our employees start engaging? And it doesn't have to be right from the physical element all the time. So right when COVID hit, our upper level, I remember this conversation very distinctly. My boss and our executive director came and sat in my office and said, so we have some news today. 1, you're being sent home to work from home until further notice. And 2, we're really interested in the wellness program taking up the mantle to help our employees with this transition that we're going to be making for our organization. We know that there's going to be a lot around stress management, and there's going to be a lot around using nutrition at home. You know, when you're home and have the ability to snack, how do you handle that? And they said, you know, that's something we would like you to take on the responsibility of kind of helping with this transition. So I said, okay, I packed up all my things and I went home. And the first thing I did is, with our wellness program, we set up a committee of people who are kind of different representatives or liaisons to each of our individual apartments. And what we discovered was that having someone in each department who could be like the representative, who could send out appointments, who could talk up the program, talk about reminders, was the best way to get people engaged. So I called all those people and I said, let's brainstorm. What are some ideas we can come up with to help employees through this transition? And we had already been using an existing newsletter that we call it the Fly Well newsletter. We're an airport, we've kind of branded around that. And so we call it the Fly Well newsletter, and it was our wellness newsletter that would go out each month that we decided needed to become a weekly tips and tricks for employees during quarantine and during COVID. So we started putting together a list of topics that we thought we could be sending out to our different employees. And so those topics that we started sending out educational materials on ranged from Mayo Clinic understanding of mindfulness. So you could do a quick Google search, and the Mayo Clinic has a tutorial on introduction to mindfulness and breathing, and taking that as a practice that when you become overwhelmed or stress management, that you could use that. So we wrote an article on that, but we also started talking about other things like nutrition. We made it very specific to Kentucky. We talked about, in another week, a newsletter that we wrote, we talked about birding. And so using birding as an example of a way that employees could engage in wellness, they could get outside during the day if they were working from home, that they could do something that was Kentucky specific, that was both learning, but also getting them out and active. And so that was kind of our initial entry point there, of developing a newsletter that could be sent out weekly with tips and tricks to our employees. Something that came up really early on is we discovered that there were employees who wanted to participate. People I had no idea were interested in this. And so an example that comes to mind is an employee who happens to have a degree in exercise science. He goes, you know, I'm really good at exercise science. I'm happy to write a little news blip that could go in the newsletter about different moves that you could do, different exercises you could do, and I'll take pictures of them so employees have an example and they can work along with their coworkers with these different exercises. So we went ahead and started including that. We called it Matt's Move of the Month. We also had another employee come up to me and said, you know, I really like watching Netflix, and I'm happy to write a review of a movie that people could watch together, and they can do it socially distanced, and you know, they could talk about it afterwards. I'm like, absolutely happy to have that happen. So we called that Streaming with Sarah. So we had all these different employees suddenly coming out of the woodwork wanting to participate. And again, I'm going to go back to that idea that for me, our wellness program has always been about just finding ways for people to get involved and interested, and then we could use that as a way that they become interested in other elements of the wellness program as well. So that's kind of how it started. I would say that our biggest challenge early on as an organization was after we did this kind of initial campaign of tips and tricks of ways to quarantine well. Because we're an airport, we had employees who were required to still be working on site and employees who were working at home. So we had kind of a cultural divide starting to happen of people who could still see each other, and then people who were starting to really feel this sense of isolation and loneliness. So I did it again, a quick Google search, called up my wellness representatives and brainstormed, and we came up and started recognizing that because of COVID, there were all these new opportunities that people could engage in as well. And so the examples I'm specifically thinking of was the National Theatre in London started every Friday live streaming a performance that they had recorded. Google Culture started putting together a website where employees could go and they could do a Zoom call, they could do a FaceTime, but they could explore historic sites together, and it's just pictures you click through with explanations of those things. And similarly with many museums put that together. So we as a wellness committee started sponsoring these different activities that employees could do that would help them feel better connected to their coworkers across departments. And that was kind of our big shift, is when we started seeing that wellness culture that we had developed long before COVID really start to make its way into COVID as well. People being able to engage again with their coworkers. So that was a really, really important thing that we ended up doing. I'm just checking time here a little bit. I think I'm supposed to be done at 8:20. So forgive me for 1 second here. I want to make sure we leave time for questions too. Yeah, I guess honestly, that's probably where I'll stop. What I'm proudest of is the fact that because we use MailChimp for our wellness newsletter, we were able to kind of identify that our readership went from 40% to 70% of employees. And that was a big change for us. We went from about half of our employees reading to almost 2/3, or sorry, 3/4. So that was a big deal for us, and we were very proud of that element. And I would say that those individual relationships and finding different ways for people to engage, whether it was, we started hosting finance meetings also for our retirement account, however it was that people were interested in learning about a pillar of wellness. That was how we got people kind of started. And then we started seeing that expand into other areas, whether it was physicality or mental wellness, whatever it could be. So yeah, I think that's kind of what I have to say and share this morning. I want to leave time for questions if we still have time, Matt.
Yeah, well, since I ate up a little bit of our time at the beginning, absolutely. What I want to do is welcome anybody who, if you want to unmute yourself, you should be able to, if you have a question for Daniel. But yeah, it's awesome. I mean, really just the fact that, you've kind of borne out the fact that wellness can be, number one, letting people come in when they can, where they are ready and where on the totem pole they are, but then it becomes a boomerang for other things. So you've kind of been a perfect example of that. So thank you so much. So again, if anybody has any questions, we got time for, at least certainly a question or two, if you'd like to ask. So unmute, ask. Floor is yours if you'd like to take it. All right, so I'm going to ask a question then. So
Yeah.
Daniel, who's the leader of the Bluegrass Airport? I guess you've got a president or somebody, a lead person. Maybe the person who asked you to take this little project on. Tell me what they think at this point. Like, tell me what their reaction, because they handed you this hot potato, and all of a sudden now it seems to be working. Tell me what they're thinking or what you've heard.
So our executive director's name is Eric Frankel, but we also have a board of directors that kind of oversees the airport as a whole. And so I know as soon as we won that award, I sent them kind of a notice of kind of like, hey, we ended up not winning one award, but two, and this is what they're for, and this is kind of what they mean. And I got so many emails back immediately about, oh my goodness, this is amazing. How can we share this more with our employees? We want to make sure people really realize what they're being offered through this program. And so I would say that they have become very invested in what it offers our employees. I would say also that the biggest element for them has been the relational piece of the wellness program. So often, I think what is challenging is that we no longer, because of COVID, we no longer have that office banter. And so being able to have a means to socialize with each other, that's not after hours Zoom happy hour, something that actually has perhaps a little bit more of a shared interest or depth to it that can be both educational as well as friendly and social, has been very important to him.
Awesome. And I hadn't even thought about the fact that the award, obviously it's a recognition of what you've done and it's a validation, but you know what, it may also help encourage people to be involved more because they're proud of what they were involved in. So that's also neat. Anybody else have a question for Daniel?
Hi, Daniel. My name is Melissa with TARC, Transit Authority of River City, and we likewise have those frontline people that are necessary to be on property, and then most of us are working remotely. So I'm really intrigued about getting that connection back and that feeling of camaraderie and teamwork together with the Zoom meetings. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, we can.
Okay. So my question is, when you're in that Zoom meeting, is it just anybody can communicate, or do you mute them, or how do you set up that strategy to keep it from going sideways? I mean, because we're going to have people, everyone always has those people that get in there and try to thwart things and complain and so on and so forth. So how do you handle that, Daniel?
What a great question. Thanks, Melissa. I really appreciate that. We've kind of taken two approaches. The first would be, we kind of sponsor this more bigger idea of these are opportunities that you can engage with coworkers, and we let coworkers set those up individually with other people that they haven't seen in a while or that they would like to communicate with. So there's that element. But then there's also, to more address your specific question, we've also done things like this Friday. It happens to be our week of wellness. So I kind of have a lot going on in my brain in this moment, but this Friday we're sponsoring a Zoom yoga session. And one thing that we typically end up doing is, yes, I will mute employees when they join that room, and I'll just communicate with them individually if they have questions, but then I will share my screen about different resources I've been able to find. So there happens to be a website called fitnessblender.com. This is not me trying to plug them by any means, but they have been an invaluable resource to us because they offer complete body weight exercises that employees could do from home. They include warm-ups and cool downs. They have a yoga leading session. So really how I handle that would be, I kind of invite people in and say, we're going to do this together remotely, but none of us are talking because we're going to be listening to a presenter who's already pre-recorded, right? So I don't have to manage that or moderate that afterwards. And if we open it up for questions afterwards, then we can just have a more casual conversation, and it doesn't really become an issue I haven't found with our employees of people complaining too much. Is that helpful?
She may have remuted, but I'll tell you what we're going to do. So we did, now everybody's flowing in with questions, but I'll tell you what.
That was very.
Sorry, Melissa.
That's okay. I said it was very helpful, Daniel. But so there are more pre-recorded things that you share with your group.
Primarily, they are resources I have found either through, again, kind of like the National Theatre of London, who does pre-recorded live streams of their show, or through Google Culture. So people who can just log in and do that together, and they set those up individually. You can use the Google Culture app to explore historic sites. So it's kind of a combination of all pre-recorded, typically if I'm leading it. And if I'm not leading it, I ask people to set that kind of up individually with their own team members or people that they haven't seen in a while, that kind of thing.
Perfect. Thank you, Daniel.
Well, so I'll tell you what, so even though, and I'm going to say, we now have a kind of a little flurry of questions, but I'm going to make a quick pivot because we are, I know Jeanie is, who's with Sumitomo, is anxiously awaiting to share some things too. And maybe what we'll do is we'll come back at the end if we've got some time to share. So Jeanie, I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter. And again, Daniel, thank you so much. Very helpful and really insightful. And now that the questions flow in, maybe we'll come back at the end. But I'm going to go ahead. Jeanie, if you want to go ahead and get started, you are now the presenter. And just as a reminder for everybody, you can, there you go. If you, again, your mouse on a computer, you can pull the little line in the middle, the gray line in the middle, you can pull it up and down to make the presentation bigger. So Jeanie?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's staying well and safe during the COVID pandemic. I know it's been a lot going on, and with facilities and trying to get people to still do wellness and health along with the pandemic. And that was a great presentation, Daniel. You do a lot of things that we do as well. And we have people still working from home. For example, me working from home. We have people furloughed. We have people on a week, off a week. So it's a big diverse of people in the office, out of the office kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is and thank you very much for the award, the Workplace Agility Award. I appreciate what the Wellness Council of Louisville does. They do a great job. And I just wanted to thank them for that. Also, I'm going to show a couple of slides. There's a couple of 3 slides here. Because if I kept on talking with all the notes I've got now, we'll be here to 4 o'clock. So I'm going to go ahead and start this presentation. Okay, I thought I was.
And you may be able to either use your arrows on your, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the history of Sumitomo Electric Wiring Systems. We started a program, a comprehensive wellness program in January of 2011. We started out strong. We started out with premium discounts and things like that, and really had good turnout. But it was like 88% in 2011, and we went up approximately 94% participation out of all our group, which is well over 1,000. So I think that's really good that each year somebody sees something that somebody else did, and they're like, oh, I would love to join that program. Oh, wow. So we get excited when we go around to different facilities. They're telling us that, oh, I'm so thankful for the wellness program. If it weren't for that, I'd be in the hospital right now. Things like that really makes you feel good and tugs at your heart a little bit. Our program's measured by points. If they do a webinar that's online, that we have online, that they can just get on and do a webinar of some subject and take a test, they'll get 1 point. If they do something like all these programs we've been doing since the pandemic, they get 2 points. So as long as they get 4 points for other wellness events and do the wellness labs and health risk assessment, they get a premium discount of 30% the next year. We had some trouble this year. We didn't get to do wellness labs because we usually do them in April. So we couldn't do them because of the pandemic, and LabCorp wouldn't come on site to do them. So it's just been a little bit hard this year for that kind of stuff. But I think everybody's doing really good, and we've started integrating a lot of wellness events, excuse me, into the COVID-19 pandemic. For example, we have a new president now. We just got him right after the pandemic started. But each week he sends out an email and a letter just talking about pandemic and how you should stay safe and stay safe at home. Also, we got a COVID-19 site on our wellness, on our SOSNet. It's called SOSNet, but we got a site that actually you can go to and get COVID-19 information, and that's real helpful. Everybody likes that. We also send out every week a newsletter, so that goes out to everybody as well, and it just talks about some of the COVID stuff. And when I find out any kind of information, new information from, say, the CDC, we'll put that in there and different things like that. So everybody really enjoys that newsletter. So our adaptation to COVID-19, excuse me for a minute, I've got a cold. So 75% of our associates were furloughed or working from home by April. Like our office, the Bowling Green corporate office I work at, we have been out working at home since the last of March. So all of our facilities, that's manufacturing facilities that does the wiring and stuff for the cars, they are like furloughed 1 week, and then they come back and work for a week. Furloughed 1 week, come back and work for a week. And then it got like 2 weeks, come back and then be off 2 weeks. So we're still dealing with a lot of that and still dealing with some COVID that we have had in our facility. So we have to deal with that too with our COVID-19 policy that we have in place. We did a temperature program. As soon as we started working from home, I had everybody take their temperature at home each morning, and they would receive a wellness point if they did that for so many weeks. I think we did it for 2 months. And everyone liked that also. We still do smoking cessation program. Anybody that quits smoking for at least 8 months, we'll give them a $100 gift card. So even during this pandemic, I think it's been awesome. There's been 3 that has quit smoking even during the pandemic. So I really praise them for that, because that would be hard to do. I know it's hard with stress, being home and your kids being in school, out of school. So everyone's enjoying anything like that. Body mass index, we did that too. We started that right before the pandemic. So I continue having people doing that also while they were at home. A lot of people lost weight. They lost weight instead of gained weight because they had more time to exercise and eat right. Healthy at home was a family. They send us some pictures. It could be a family cooking a healthy meal, exercising, practicing, grocery store shopping, anything like that. They can send that to us and they'll get a point. And it's anything they're doing with the kids outside or anything with their mask on. And I'll show you a picture at the very end of this. Healthy Reset program, we started that right after everybody started working from home. That was real good. Everybody did that. And basically what it was is every week there was a different subject that would be sent out, and they would have to do that subject for that week. For example, not get on social media for a week. I know that was hard for some people, but some people did it. So they were not supposed to be on social media for a week. I thought that one was a good one. And then of course weight loss and some other things like that. So we did that for 6 weeks. Health and wellness packets, we decided to send some health and wellness packets out to each person, each facility. We had to send some home. We had to send some to their facility. And what it had in it, it had like our different health and wellness information. It had we do Get It Checked program. If somebody does their annual exam, 3 of them a year, they'll get 2 points that goes towards their premium discount. And then we put in there some bingo, some COVID bingo that they could do, which we've had a lot of people doing that already. And we just had their health risk assessment results in that packet and some more information on wellness and what we were doing here at Sumitomo. So everyone liked that. The Get It Checked program, of course, the Healthy at Home bingo, at home family information. And we also put some COVID-19 information in that packet, along with the updated guidelines from the governor, and newsletter, like I said earlier, and cheap and fun activities for your family, like meal planning and tips for a great school year with both remote or in class. I don't know if you all have had that, but here where we live, they might go 2 days out of a week and do virtual 3 days out of a week, or they may, each one's different. Scottsville, Bowling Green, each one's different in how they're doing it. So a lot of people is having a lot of issues with that, being able to stay with their kids as far as keeping up their homework and also keeping up what they're supposed to be doing. And this is our pictures. as you see, this is me and my husband with our mask on at Walmart. And then this is a guy that works in Mississippi. And then over here is Wendy and her daughter. She took her to school that morning, so she had her mask on. Wendy Browder's also on here, and she's one of my wellness committee members for corporate. So it's me and her at corporate that does most of this. So I'm glad she got to be on here and listen. Do you have anything to say, Wendy?
No, I think you've done a great job. I mean, we really put a lot of effort into it, especially being at home. It's been a struggle with some people in, some people out, like she said. But I think everybody's really picked up and done a good job at running with the programs this year.
Oh, nice.
I agree, Wendy. We've had a lot of people that joined this year. We had some of them that joined this year that hadn't never joined or done anything. So I think our wellness program is going great. Our pandemic, we're following up on that, like I said, each week. Basically, everybody is home, tired, wants to get out some. So we're kind of trying to get people not to go to Florida and things like that. Of course, we can't make them not go to Florida, but we've had several go to Florida, come back. They caught it and they came back and gave it to their family and then a coworker. So we kind of have to, I don't know how you all are doing it, but we just kind of have to listen and see if they are or not. And then when they come home, they'll have to quarantine. Now, as far as Wendy had to go do an audit at our Scottsville and Edmonton location. She had to, since she went to one of the facilities outside the corporate office, she had to quarantine for 10 days before she could come back in the office or anything. So that's what basically we're doing now. We've got a travel ban. No one can travel, like I said, even to facility. So that's been kind of hard on everybody, and especially Wendy and the safety team trying to do audits and things like that. So it's been a challenging year, I'd say. I guess that's it. Does anybody have any questions? Y'all are quiet.
Floor is open, so I'm gonna allow, since the flurry came in before, I'm sure that there's some folks that have some questions. So Jeanie, that was awesome. Thank you. Congratulations to everything that you all have done. And I mean, I'm personally glad to see, you know, you got folks that are wearing masks and you're making it a positive thing, and that's a great thing. So
yeah, it's good. Everybody wears them, so push some fuss about it, but they end up wearing them anyway. So.
All right, so don't wait till the last minute now. Everybody who's got a question, go ahead. Let's learn a little bit more from Jeanie if you've got something that is top of mind.
You can always email me if you have any kinds of questions. My email is jdickerson@CWS.com. Seems like every time I go to Louisville each year, and if we win an award, somebody will be sitting at our table wanting my email, and they'll actually email me and ask me questions about how I do this and how I run that program. So if anybody wants to email me anytime, that'd be fine.
Well, thank you for sharing it. And again, I'll ask maybe a similar question, but not the exact one. So obviously you guys have had a program in place for a long time, and you started off really strong. I mean, you said 80 some odd percent out of the gate, which is kind of stunning.
Yes.
So that's great. Tell me what your leadership team, I mean, tell me about their thought process with it. I mean, what's their reaction to how you all are doing, or how you have done over time? What's the support that you get?
We get real good support from our management. My boss, he's the general affair manager over every one of the facilities. He's really into this wellness, and we have a mascot. When we first started in 2011, I picked Dr. Gumby for our mascot. So he went out and bought a Gumby suit and and bought a jacket that says Dr. Gumby on it. So when we have our wellness summits we have each year, unfortunately we have to do it virtually this year, but he'll come in and do some wellness stuff with Gumby on. It's pretty neat, but we have very good response from all our management. We have new presidents every 2 to 3 years. So we just got one. It was right after the pandemic. So he came over and got a flu shot one day and things, and talked to me a little bit about it. But I'm gonna have to sit down and talk to him a little bit more when we go back to work, just to let him know exactly what we do as far as wellness. But yeah, we have real good support at every facility with management. We also have wellness champions at each of the facilities. So they're the ones that if I send information to them, they're supposed to post it, give it to the hourly associates, because most of our hourly associates don't have email. So we have to get it to them some way, by either handing it out or posting it or putting it up on our Marlin in the cafeteria or something like that. But yeah, we have champions that do a great job.
Well, I'll tell you what, so thank you. I mean, this is, again, it's a different perspective. Some, here's some, again, Daniel was telling us that, their program relatively new and kind of upstart, whatever. You guys have been going for a long time, but staying creative. So again, congratulations for winning the award this year.
Thank you.
And thank you for taking the time to put this together and share what your experience has been. And so what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and pivot over. Again, we may come back at the end if people are storing up their questions, but let's go ahead and again pivot over to Kristin Meschler, who's with AssuredPartners. So Kristin, I am right now making you the presenter. You should be in a position to go forth. So good morning.
Right. Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And actually, we're going to start out with a few slides this morning. So first and foremost, it's so great to be here with you guys today. Really appreciate the time. This is our 5th Worksite Wellness Council win, but it's actually our first time winning a Fleur-de-Lis award. So this is really exciting, something that we're so proud of. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you guys today and talk a little bit about actually something different that we did, which I think is the main reason that we were able to win the award. First and foremost, a little bit about me. So I am one of our regional directors of health and productivity at AssuredPartners. We're the 12th largest insurance brokerage in the country, something that we're really proud of. But I always like to joke with people, I feel like I have the absolute best job in the world when you think about insurance. All day, every day, I get to both support wellness internally, so actually working with our associates and trying to help them with their personal journeys, but also a lot of what we do is supporting our employee benefits clients. So we're actually providing consulting and support for them. So wearing multiple hats. But it makes it fun and exciting, and so I really appreciate the opportunity that I have to influence lots of people with regard to wellness. I mentioned that we were the 12th largest broker in the country, but a little bit more about us, and I'm not going to go into detail about this because I really want to spend the bulk of the time today sharing with you what we did. But I do think this is important to share because I really wanted to talk a little bit about what some of our challenges are. As you can see, we've got 170 physical locations, and that number is ever growing. We're adding agencies to our family all of the time. And so that presents some really unique challenges when you think about how do you promote wellness across the country and do it with locations, many of whom are new and are kind of folding in. How does that work? How do you have success with that? And we've had a wellness program for almost 10 years now, and so we've learned a lot over the years. And we're still growing, we're still learning, but we do have some pretty good insight at this point. We've learned oftentimes the hard way. But when we talk about what are some of the challenges, you saw in kind of our quick stats before, first and foremost, we have 170 locations, physical locations. And I do a lot of traveling in my business, and I'm lucky enough that I get to go to a lot of these locations and meet people. And one of the things that I would say, and I'm sure for those of you who have multiple sites, you can probably relate, is that every single one has a different and unique culture. Every single office operates a little bit differently. They have their own sort of unique personality infusion to the things that they do. And so one of the things that I'm really proud of is that at AssuredPartners, we actually have a very decentralized operations model. So what that means is, we've got agencies that are folding in all of the time. And while we do have a lot of our benefits are operated at a corporate level. But beyond that, from a leadership standpoint, from a culture standpoint, from an engagement standpoint, we really allow our locations to have a lot of independence. And, I think that's really great. But what it often can do too is that everybody's doing different things. So how do you manage that? And how do you communicate that? We still have at our corporate level, that's really where AP Wellness starts. We've got our corporate initiatives, and that's going to include things like, we have premium incentive tied to both our wellness program, but we've also got it tied to tobacco, non-tobacco rates. So that's kind of the foundation of our program. We've got an online portal, we've got coaching, we've got all of these other programs at the corporate level. But from there, we found that really the best way for us to promote wellness and truly drive engagement was to allow our local offices to have independence with how they do that. So again, 170 locations. How do you even go about doing that? We developed a group that we refer to as our wellness leaders. And so, kind of like Daniel was sharing earlier, very similarly situated that, every office has a wellness leader. We come together on a monthly basis. We, kind of share any updates, again, related to the corporate programs. We're talking about what's going on there, sharing any news. But we're also kind of opening it up to our wellness leaders. It becomes an idea share. It becomes a, hey, what are you doing locally? What's something successful that happened? Give any, personal stories. And we had a lot of success with that. But even from that, what we started to notice was that, wow, our wellness leaders are incredible. They are beyond champions. They are rocking, they're rolling. But how do we spread that? How do we share those successes with the employees in the Louisville office about what the employees in our Colorado offices are doing? How do we make sure that they know that? How do we start to pull everybody together? And it's definitely a challenge. So, obviously we do that through our leadership, and we've got great leadership engagement at AssuredPartners. I have to say, there's certain things that when we're having our annual leadership meetings, we're talking about wellness. Employee engagement is one of our major pillars just organizationally, and wellness is directly tied in with that. And through the COVID pandemic, kind of like, both Daniel and Jeanie were saying, I think as an organization, we realized very early on that wellness was going to be critical. That was going to be a critical part of our response to COVID. But we knew that we needed to communicate. And I want to share this statistic because I think you guys will find it interesting. I was on a webinar with Jellyvision, and they stated that during COVID, there was a national study that was done, national survey that was done, asking employees across the country where, what their #1 trusted resource for news related to COVID was. Interestingly, 70% of those surveyed said that employers were their #1 trusted resource for news and information related to COVID. When I first heard that, I was initially kind of surprised. I was like, wow, really? Immediately after that, I wasn't at all, because I thought, well, yeah, obviously, we live in a time where there's lots of news and information. And quite frankly, a lot of people don't always trust the news that they're getting through media sources. And so of course you're going to trust your employer first and foremost to give you important information. So I think that's where communication immediately becomes first and foremost. How do you communicate regularly with your teams? How do you provide them the resources that they need? And so we actually did something a little bit different. We partnered with Community Health Magazine, and actually I'm going to switch gears here a little bit because I really want to take you through and show you an example of this. Community Health Magazine is a group that we partnered with. to develop published printed magazines that get home delivered to all of our employees across the country. These come out quarterly. One of the unique things that I'll share about it is that this is truly a beautiful published piece. These stories are written by professional writers and journalists. You know, I've had the opportunity to work with some of these writers, and I can tell you, they're kind of moonlighting doing this on the side, but many of them are working for newspapers, magazines that you probably would know and read from all the time. But they're actually focusing on our membership. These stories, this magazine is purely AssuredPartners. So you can see here on the screen, this was our most recent issue. We've got another issue coming out soon, but this hit summer of 2020. And so, as you know, it was right amid the pandemic. And so this particular issue, we focused on that, you know, emerging from a pandemic. You can see that it's all AssuredPartners branding there. As we move into it, you can also see first and foremost on the cover, we do things like we've got our benefits listed here. So if you look on the left-hand side, that's all our information. Good reminder, right, for employees of the benefits that they have. Just like in any magazine that you would see, on the right-hand side, you've sort of got your table of contents there, give you a sense of what's inside. As we move along here, you'll also see on the left-hand side, we've always got a note, this is some member of our leadership team, and we try to vary that throughout. You might have some of our local leaders, you might have some of our executive team, but they write a little letter, a little personal note, and then we move into the content. So this first article is about telehealth, obviously something that we've all been talking about throughout the pandemic. But as we move through here, you'll get sort of a sense of what we're doing is our programs, and what we're featuring is our teams. So this article was actually done, you know, and some of our wellness leaders were featured. And if you look, I don't know how clearly you can see, but you can kind of take a look through there and see Melissa Leonhardt is actually one of our wellness leaders. And this was about their response to COVID. So as I mentioned, we decentralized, we give the local offices a lot of flexibility in how they respond to things. So our local offices were responding to COVID in different ways. This particular group, they're sending out weekly emails and made it fun by having different exercise and stretching routines that they would tie to well-known songs. And that was their way of, if you could get employees thinking of that song we all know and tie it to a certain movement, maybe we could get them moving more at home. So that's what this piece is about. These are our teams, our employees that are being featured here. As we move along, we've got another article. You know, I, along with a few other people, was featured in this particular article, but again, it's all talking about movement at home. How do you get moving when you're stuck at home? You know, different ideas and ways that you can do that. So we'll move further here because I don't want to take up too much time, but I do want you guys to get a real sense of what this looks like. It's something that we're really proud of and we've had a lot of success with. This is an interesting piece because what I will tell you is from a corporate level, during the pandemic, our HR teams really felt like they wanted to focus on PTO. We knew that stress and mental health was really important. And so our HR teams put a big emphasis behind, hey, we want people to take their time off, take a break. Even though you're stuck at home, you still need to have time away from work and focus on things other than work. So this article is actually about the benefits of and why it's so important to take time away. It ties directly in with one of our corporate initiatives during COVID. You know, this is an article that was done, one of our offices during the pandemic, and they're actually in Missouri, I believe, but they did a water challenge. And so this particular story is about, you know, the success that they had with that and how they set that up and how that went for them. This next feature is actually a really special one. One of our team members in our Louisville office sadly lost his mother to COVID. And unfortunately, she was one of the very first cases in Louisville. And this story was actually about how when she was hospitalized, and they have a very large family, large extended family, the family, of course, wasn't able to be there in the hospital. And so this is about how they connected virtually and how they were able to spend their last moments with their mother, grandmother, virtually at the hospital. So it's a really beautiful piece. And this employee has been really open about that experience, and we certainly appreciate this. And I think it lends that really beautiful and very personal touch that can be shared now with all of our team members. You'll also see here too, and I think one of the cool things about this magazine is that all of the content is driven by our teams. But the other thing that I think is so cool is that so are the ads. You know, when you think about your typical magazine and you've got advertisements for whatever, in this case, there are advertisements. So we're advertising things like our wellness program. You know, I mentioned this earlier that, you know, that's driven at our corporate level. And so we do have an outcomes-based wellness incentive. And then, of course, you can see, you know, we rely on programs to serve as reasonable alternatives. Coaching, we do offer Real Appeal and other, you know, clinical programs as well. So again, we're using this magazine as a way to promote our programs kind of through advertisements, which I think is exciting. This is a feature on finances. Obviously, I think we know why that is extremely important right now, always, but certainly in the current landscape. And then I do want to move on. We've got some other features, easy on the eyes. It was summertime, so we really wanted to focus on, you know, eye health and of course the importance of caring for your eyes, especially when the summer sun is at its greatest strength. You know, we also featured some programs. We've actually got a new cancer program that we're rolling out that was actually developed internally by our analytics team, something that we're really proud of. And it's essentially, to put it in its easiest way to describe, it's kind of like our members are now able to get a second opinion through Johns Hopkins. It's a really incredible program, something that we're very proud of, and we're actually working to be able to do for our clients as well. But so this is, again, a feature on that. What a great way to try and inform employees of new benefit offerings that they have available to them. This is what we call our culture corner. I realize there's maybe a lag in getting there, but we do this in every issue, and we just share a few pictures from all across the country. People can submit whatever they want. And again, it's that way of letting people get a sense of what is happening at some of the different AssuredPartners locations. We've got everything from, you know, one of our offices that was coming back into the office did a little welcome back barbecue. You can see they were very socially distanced with it, but still had a lot of fun. Some of our other groups, you know, serving and supporting their local healthcare heroes and finding ways to give back during the pandemic. This picture here is actually myself and my team, you know, just kind of sharing some pictures of how we were trying to stay active during the pandemic. And then lastly, I'm going to scroll through some of these. These are just more examples of our quote unquote advertisements and how we tie that directly into our benefits. This has been a really great way for us to remind people, hey, you have these incredible benefits. Don't forget about them. And you know, what we've found, and kind of closing here, is that we've had a lot of success. One, we've got employees coming and saying, wow, this is so cool. I love this magazine. I actually keep it. You know, they're keeping it handy. That's how they access when they have questions about their benefits or questions about the wellness program. They've got those magazines at home and they're really leaning on them to answer any questions that they might have. You know, it's been a very cool experience. We're just starting to analyze, you know, do we feel like this is having an impact on our programs? Do we feel like, we're seeing anything, and can we be very specific with the data about it? So we're just starting that. So we don't have tangible numbers, but what I can share is, many groups are struggling with engagement in 2020. We've actually seen an uptick in participation this year, which we're really proud of. And not just with our wellness programs, but even with some of our, other benefits programs, EAP, things of that nature. So we feel like this definitely is a reason for that. And the feedback just that we're getting from employees is great. They love seeing, in New Jersey, what people are doing in California. It's exciting, and it's a great way to sort of pull everybody together. So, that said, I'm going to go ahead and maybe pause, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen here too, bring it back, but would definitely open it up to any questions. Not sure if we have time, Matt, or maybe if we need to wrap it up, but I appreciate the time today.
We may have time for a question or two, so I'm going to just ask the group, does anybody have a question of Kristin? Thank you so much, Kristin. It was really helpful to understand it, and the newsletter just gives us a sense for, how you all are communicating as well, so thank you. So the floor is open. If you have a question, don't wait till the last minute. We won't have it.
Do you mail your newsletters to the home address, or do you publish electronically, or both?
Yeah, great question. Actually, both. So we do home deliver these magazines. They get sent by mail to every employee's home quarterly. But then we do also have, kind of like we looked at today, we've got the digital version, and we'll typically post that on our intranet or somewhere else so people have that online access as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I do want to point out, again, I'm not trying to make any plugs, but this is not something we produce internally. Community Magazine Group is actually who does this for us. And, we sort of learned about them through one of our associates, and, they do a fantastic job. I know that I think their typical target group is groups that are over 150. So please don't hesitate to reach out, or again, I'm happy to share Community Health Magazine's contact information with the council, and they can certainly put that out if there's any interest.
Yeah, and I'll say this along those lines. So what we're going to end up doing in just a couple minutes when we close out, Candace has been kind enough. She's going to collect all the stuff that she's heard, and of course, if any of Daniel's already shared some things through the chat, which you may have seen, but Candace is going to capture that, and Jeanie, if there's other resources that you had, or Kristin, same thing, and then we'll post those along with the recording of this session to our website fairly quickly. I mean, it certainly, I'll say by Monday at the latest, to give Candace a little time. But so is there maybe a last question? Anybody have a question they want to ask Kristin, just to get in before we conclude this morning?
Hey, Kristin, it's Alex. Sorry, I had a meeting before this and popped on late, so you may have already discussed this, but could you give everyone a quick rundown of how that process works if you haven't already, like how you gather the stories and meet with Mark?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about it, but I can certainly expand on that. So essentially, we work with Community Magazine Group in advance. So there's kind of our strategic team that comes together, and we do sort of an editorial planning session, just like you would with any other publication. And we sort of target, okay, what are the main points we want to cover with this magazine? Along the way, and really, we have an email that we throw out to all our teams. They have access to it all year long. Anyone who wants to submit something for publication sends it to that email, and then we kind of cipher through it and plug and play as it relates to whatever topics we've chosen. And I did mention earlier, but we'll say again, I think one of the things that's so great about this is you've got professional published writers and journalists that are actually reaching out to members. They typically will send an email, and then they call by phone. you know, and say, hey, can I spend some time? Can I interview you for this story? So quite literally, other than the editorial meetings that we have with the group, we're completely hands off with this. You know, the community magazine group reaches out to everyone and gets the content and writes the content. We see drafts of it, we edit as we need to, and then it gets published. So it's really been a great process for us.
Well, thank you, Kristin. And again, thanks to Daniel and Jeanie and Kristin, and congratulations on, again, winning the awards this year at our 2020 virtual conference. So to everybody else, thanks so much for joining. We appreciate it. I know we'll have another event come November, and I'm not sure, Candace, if you're listening, I'm not sure what it is off the top of my head. But again, I know it'll be a great thing. Again, the third Thursday of the month, and soon enough, we'll all get back together again at Milestone. But for the moment, I think we're going to stick it out with the virtual. So please join us next, again, third Thursday of November, and you know, same deal, 8 a.m. So we'll look forward to seeing you. And again, thanks so much for joining this morning. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.